What's up, Tim Sykes here with a whole group of traders. This is the Midwest meetup with all the most successful Midwesterners. I'm only partially in here because I'm in the Midwest right now, but I'm not a Midwesterner. Take it away, Midwesterners!
So, I guess I'm kind of stuck as I am Tim Bohen, the host of the StocksToTrade podcast, so I guess I kind of get suckered into doing some of this duty.
You're the elder Midwesterner.
Yes.
You have the grayest beard.
There you go.
You are Caesar.
So, Michael Goode, you are a Midwesterner by transport, or by...
by birth.
Oh, are you? Okay, that's right.
I grew up in the Chicago area.
That's right. I forgot about that. I was thinking you were down in St. Louis or somewhere.
No, I lived there for some
Okay.
years.
So, so you're currently in the Western Michigan area.
Yes.
Whereabouts unknown, which I don't blame you. This is
Yes.
the internet. So, if you're not familiar with Michael Goode, check out Goode Trades with an E. And you could also listen to his phone ring, and possibly maybe that's someone calling him.
You gotta dance when your phone rings, Mike. Listen to that. What is that song?
So we'll move on with the introductions. So this is Dom. I actually just met Dom.
Wait, I'll take his place.
I just met Dom today.
No,
Nice to meet you.
Wait, hold on. I'm Michael Goode.
Okay.
Where's your beard?
I shaved. I used to be Tim Sykes' biggest hater, but now I'm not.
That's a pretty good impersonation.
I've made $2 million. Life is good.
So anyway, nice to meet you, Dom, by the way. We'd like to have you on the StocksToTrade podcast soon. And then there's Jack Kellogg, Jackaroo. He's been on the StocksToTrade podcast, one of the best episodes. A lot of people really love that. These guys are different than what I do, what Tim does, and what Michael Goode does. And I think that's the great thing about low price stocks. You guys are mostly OTC traders, right?
Yep.
So
Tag team, back in.
why don't you, when it comes to definition of terms, and we'll come back to you, Michael. What explain, Dom. I'll start with you since you're closest. What is your trading style? What do you mostly look at trading? And well, let's back up. How did you get started? I'd like to start there. What got you in trading, and then go into what you're trading today? So.
Yeah, I just found a video of Tim Sykes.
Which is probably, I think all of us would
he's
probably
all
say
over
that.
the internet.
Yeah.
Tim Sykes is the man.
And just got super interested in the idea of it. Put some time into it. Joined his course and started really falling in love with it. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now.
How old are you now?
24.
Okay, all right, okay. You look younger, by the way.
Oh,
That's
thank
a
you.
compliment.
Thank you.
young.
Started off trading everything, was super inconsistent. Once I narrowed it down to mostly OTCs, and in particular sector momentum, and when a lot of a sector gets hot or sympathy plays are in action, it's when I trade my best. Primarily a long trader, looking for daily chart setups on a technical basis, looking for chart breakouts, breakdowns if I'm shorting. Pretty much the whole penny stock framework: buy the breakout, short the first red day, buy the first bounce. And I do have a couple intraday setups I look for as well in these OTCs that are super volatile, have lots of range, and are super liquid.
Yeah, I think that's for the viewers. I think that's one of the best ways to get started. First of all, get started as that long bias trader, and in those just simple breakouts. It's just, there's not going to be one every day, but if you're under the PDT, you can't trade every day anyway. So just kind of wait around for that setup that works for you. So.
Yep.
Now, what were you doing before trading?
I was in school.
Okay.
I have never had a real job. I was a landscape foreman for a few years in the summer while I was in college, and then went full-time right after college while I was still unprofitable, and that was pretty stressful, but it worked out.
Well, and I think that's again, we talk about youth. That's the benefit of youth. Is I think I talk about that all the time. Be willing to fail. You're going to fail at this game, well, unless you're an extreme outlier. There's outliers out there, but odds are you're going to fail. And if you're young, that's the time to try it,
yep.
Especially when you don't have a mortgage or a family, etc. So
exactly.
Now I think the viewers would like to know the answer to this. did any of your college education apply at all to anything you're doing today?
It's going to be a hard no.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to Jack. Give it a little bit of a background, Jack. Again, Jack's been on the podcast before, but maybe you haven't checked that out. So a little bit of a bio, and then kind of what you're trading as well, Jack.
Okay, so I went to high school, and I really didn't try too hard in school because it didn't really interest me. I just mainly played sports, soccer and basketball, and partied with my friends, and just worked on my social game and not really my academics. And I knew that college wouldn't be an option for me because I'm not trying to spend 20, 30 grand in a semester and get an education where I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And I kind of wanted to be my own boss, do real estate, do some entrepreneurial type stuff. And after high school, I didn't really know what to do, so I became an EMT, and I volunteered at a firehouse to pass some time, get in the zone, and stop partying and hanging out with toxic people. And then I wanted to get invested because I've saved up money because I've been working a valet job since I was 16. And my friend was in January 2017, that's when my New Year's resolution was to trade stocks and see what I could learn about trading stocks.
Interesting resolution.
Yeah. And then my friend, I just happened to run into an old friend, and he was like, oh, I'm interested in stocks too. I'm learning from Tim Sykes. And that night I went home and I went on YouTube, Googled up Tim Sykes, and this was just after the December of 2016 where we saw dries and all the shippers go crazy. And I was like, oh my God, there's so much opportunity here. And I was immediately addicted. I convinced my parents to split half of the Tim challenge with me. And I went in there, and then from 2017 I just studied and I worked. I just would, all day, every day, I would just think about trading and how I'm going to do this. And then 2018 started trading. And I was profitable kind of right off the bat. I was just kind of shorting some plays, some overextended gap downs, shorting some OTCs, and I was making money, but then I lost a bunch on Turtle Beach. And then I kind of met him, and he showed me his OTC strategy, and I really liked it because it was low risk, high reward. And then I just started trading that, and here we are now.
Cool. So now I'll come back to you guys, and because I want to talk about, because you're the transport plant to Michigan, correct? Because you were from.
I'm from Connecticut.
That's right.
Yeah, a small town just like Tim.
So I just mixed up the
You're not really Midwestern.
Yeah.
You're not really one of us. You can tell it. I mean, just looking at you.
So going back, Michael Goode, I think probably a lot of people know your story as well. As Tim mentioned, the original Tim Sykes hater, and probably
I still hate him.
Yeah, well, me too.
Fuck Tim Sykes. So fucking
I look at Tim and maybe you look at it the same way. It's kind of it's all at this point. You and I have known him forever. It's kind of like that brother. You love him, but you hate him. It's like
the fucking annoying brother that you want to just fucking punch.
Yeah, or I like to say, I say this about Steven Johnson and Tim a lot. I love him, but I don't like him. So that's the way I look at it as well.
But Steven Johnson's fucking undisciplined.
So
at least Tim Sykes is disciplined.
So give a little bit of your bio
Fuck
as well.
Steven Johnson.
Okay, so thank you, Sykes, for that. I had a sort of similar start in a way with Jack, starting trading just because I got some money and was looking at investing. And for me, I had never had any interest whatsoever in the stock market, finance, or business, or any of that. I was interested in the life of the mind and learning things. And I was in graduate school pursuing a PhD in cognitive psychology with a focus on memory, which I did not get. I realized after 2 years that I was just not dedicated enough to keep doing that for 60 hours a week for the rest of my life, or at least 15 more years until I got tenure. And I said, okay, I need to figure out to do something. And around the same time, one of my grandparents died. I inherited some money, and also my wife's dad died, and we got some life insurance money for that. So I looked into learning about investing, and the first company I almost invested with was a little company based in the Midwest in Chicago called U.S. Wind Farming, trading on the pink sheets. And I Googled the company's CEO and looked up the finances, and I found out that the CEO had done at least, I forget exactly how many, but he had done years in prison for stock fraud.
Typical.
And, it's hard to go to actual federal prison for stock fraud. You have to be really, really egregious about what you do. And I emailed him and like, hey, are you the same guy that this is about? And he emailed me back and said, hey, yeah, and but I'm not going anywhere, and I think we're doing really great things. If you have any doubts, don't invest, but we're going to accomplish a lot at this company. I didn't invest, and 6 months later, the SEC sued him and said that the entirety of the company, all the press releases they'd put out were lies. They had no business whatsoever. They had no contracts. It was all lies, just to pump up the stock and dump shares. So the first company I almost invested in was a pump and dump, and that was around beginning of 2005. And I had pump and dumps on my mind from the very beginning. And later, actually this was, I hadn't given up on grad school at that time. I had about maybe another year before I did that. And through, I tried a whole bunch of different trading strategies, options, shorting, buying, random liquid stocks, everything. I was doing some algorithmic swing trading, and it was actually that led me to get an account at Interactive Brokers, which is the best brokerage in the world. Thank you, Thomas Pefferty. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but I don't love them that much, but they have been one of my brokers for a long time. And
You're a fucking Interactive Broker.
And the reason,
in all honesty, Interactive Brokers does not pay us. No broker does, but they suck the least. That's what I like to say. Use a broker that sucks the least. There's a lot of sucky brokers that suck the most. Interactive Brokers sucks the least. Good job, IB.
I agree 100% with that. They suck in plenty of ways, but they suck the least. And I got it because I could trade small positions and with cheap commissions. So I could trade just a couple hundred shares and pay $1 per trade. And if I'm doing some algorithmic trading, I'm making a ton of trades at once. And I didn't have a big account, so that was useful. Okay, the first stock I almost invested in, I'm going back a ways here, was a company called U.S. Wind Farming. It looked like a great company. And then I Googled the CEO, found out he was had spent some time in prison, and then learned that he was, not a good guy. And 6 months later, the company was sued by the SEC. The SEC alleged that everything the company had said was a lie, and that they had no contracts that they had said they had. They had no real business, and that they were just, the SEC alleged that they were just promoting their stocks so that they could sell shares. And that from that beginning, I said, okay, well, this is interesting. I mean, understanding how a stock promotion works, it's like, okay, well, somebody's promoting the stock because it's not a good company, it's not a good stock. They have a lot of shares that they want to sell. So that tells me the supply and demand, that there's more supply than there is demand. And if I can just get along the right side of that trade, if I could short these things, that would be great. And it wasn't until a couple years later that I learned that you could short those. And that was after I had tried many different kinds of trading and done all sorts of different things that didn't work. Options trading, trading liquid stocks like Apple, just scalping for pennies. And then I did some algorithmic swing trading, which required doing a lot of trades with small positions. Got an account at Interactive Brokers. And then randomly in the summer of 2007, I looked up one promoted stock that I saw mentioned in, I think it was Forbes, and the Forbes Informer column, and I said, hey, I wonder if I can short this. So I didn't think you could actually short OTC stocks. I looked it up, typed it into Interactive Brokers, and found out I could short it. So I shorted it. And then I kept doing the same thing with similarly promoted stocks, and over the next 7 months, made a good deal of money, somewhere in the low six figures. I don't remember exactly how much, but definitely over $100,000, which was really good money for somebody who had been in grad school and getting by on my $17,000 a year stipend. which isn't bad when you're going to school and getting paid to actually go to school. But so I left grad school. At the time, I was also working with a friend's startup company, helping to run that, but I was doing that from home, taking a lot of phone calls, and that really didn't interfere with my trading too much. So I could just look for the newest promoted stock and short it and just hold, and then they all eventually dropped, because as soon as the stock promotion ends, there's nobody left to buy the stock, because nobody's buying it because it's a good company. They're buying it because it's being advertised. And then I found, and what I kept doing is I kept buying, taking bigger positions and bigger positions. All my profits from the last one I put into the next one. And that's a great thing if you want to grow your capital really fast or risk, destroying your entire account. Both things. It works multiple ways. So there's this one stock that I thought was promoted, and I don't know if it ever was a paid promotion, but it was really overvalued and had very little actual of a business. MXFD, it was something with not actually viaticals, but selling like life insurance policies of sick or old people. And I said, okay, I'm going to short this. This is going to drop. It'll be great. And I shorted at $13 a share. I think it was multi-$100 million market cap, probably like $300 million. It was insane. And the stock wasn't that liquid, but it kept going up day after day after day. I said, okay, I can hold through whatever. And then around the time the stock hit $26 a share, and this is when I started with about a $90,000 position at 13, and I get a forced buy-in at Interactive Brokers, which means they say, hey, you have this short stock position. You borrowed the shares to sell them, and then you promised to buy them back. Well, we can't borrow them anymore, so you need to buy them back right now. And one day the stock went from 23 to 28, and that was a one-man short squeeze. That was me.
Oh my god!
And lost I think half of my account, about half of that position I closed, and I had to close because of that forced buy-in, and then the rest I closed not that much later, maybe a little bit lower, but ended up losing somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000 on that, which is a little painful. And that was also the time that right around the time I quit my so-called day job, which wasn't really making much money, but I quit that to go trading full-time, which was a bit of a bummer to start with such a negative thing. But in the meantime, right before that, I had a $100,000 or nearly $100,000 winner on a different short. It was actually a real company, not even a promoted stock. I don't think. It was just wildly overvalued and way overextended, called LSCG Lighting Science Group, and they're still around. I think they might be on the NASDAQ now. They make LEDs. But anyway, lost money on that one. And then I said, okay, I need to get better at timing this stuff. And because with several other smaller short positions, I got forced buy-ins as well. This was around the time that the great financial crisis, as we call it, was starting. So Bear Stearns had gone kaput, I think, in February, and then the SEC started enforcing regulation SHO, which regulation of short sales, a lot tighter, which meant that if there were fails to deliver, it's very technical. I don't want to get into the technical stuff about short sales, but if you borrow the shares, you sell them, you need to actually have borrowed them, but brokers would let you do that without actually borrowing the shares. And a lot of brokers got into trouble for that, had to pay fines to the SEC. And but the end result is that all the brokers, including IB, they got a lot more aggressive about doing forced buy-ins. So it was a much bigger risk that I'd get forced to close my position when the stock had not dropped. And I had a loss, so I started looking to time my trades better, and it was around that time that I found Tim Sykes, and as he had said, I had I was his first good hater. I'm first successful student too. So I wrote this blog post about him, and I said, hey, I think there's a lot of problems with this. I think that this strategy is not going to work in the long run. The more people he tries to teach, it's going to make it not work. And there's all these crazy risks to it. But, I gave it a try anyway. I bought his book and signed up for Tim Alerts and bought his first DVD, Penny Stocking, back in May 2008. I was one of the first members of Tim Alerts, along with Tim Bohen here.
Yep.
And I was able to start trading doing more day trading, still trading a lot of the pump and dumps, but I was trading them a lot more short term with a shorter time horizon and avoiding a lot of the risks of the forced buy-ins that I had been trading. And
now, 10 plus years later, were you right? That is the question. Now that more people are doing this strategy, is it not working anymore? Answer the question! Can you handle the truth?
I knew that was coming. I saw the can't handle the truth coming. So
I think some of my criticisms are still valid. But it does. I was wrong.
So likes to defend his point.
He always says this, and I love riffing on him because the patterns are pretty much the same, and we have a lot of shorts, and we have a lot of longs, and increased liquidity, and increased volatility, and new opportunities with young blood. Now we can trade even more.
Thank you, Tim.
So I'll start with my bio really quick. As Michael Goode mentioned, I was, I like to say I was one of the original 10 Tim Alert subscribers. Had a lifelong interest in finance, and actually, funny thing is, I found Tim because of Amazon book recommendations. Recommended his book. I had no idea what short selling was. It was an American hedge fund. I read it. I was like, wow, this is an interesting story. Happened to be roughly about the same time Tim Alerts started. So I joined Tim Alerts, I don't know, months after Michael Goode did or somewhere in there. Something I thought of as you were talking about that. This is how far back, if you're a current Tim Sykes student and you know the chat room, back in the day, all we had was a WordPress blog, and we would chat in the comments. I mean, that's how old school it was.
That was the chat room.
That was the chat room, yep. Because there was only like 50 of us.
We'd have like a couple hundred comments.
Yep. So every day, Tim would post his watch list, and the chat room was just WordPress comments.
Yes.
So I remember that you'd have to go back there and refresh it to see if anybody commented.
That's so
So that was back in the olden days when we didn't have electricity or indoor plumbing or anything like that. But anyway, so I evolved from there. Again, back in the day was very I don't want to say aggressive, but primarily a short seller as well for 5 or 6 years, trading a lot of the same stuff Michael did, having the same problems of buy-ins and trying to find shares and changing brokerage accounts. I mean, we used to change brokerage accounts every 6 months, and then that brokerage all the borrows would dry up, and we'd move on. So anyway, evolved through there. Went full-time, actually sold my business because I was more interested in trading in 2013. Went full-time, trying to keep this quick. Full-time trading's a lonely business. That's why I love what these guys do, and we'll get back to that. They have their trading team or their trading floor there in their apartment. Full-time trading's a lonely business, and so in 2016, StocksToTrade approached me, and I've been working with them and the Steady Trade podcast to kind of get out there and help others learn, and I enjoy doing this type of stuff as well. And then I'm back to part-time trading today, which I think it's a great way to look at it. I mean, it's a way Tim looks at it too, is trying to only trade when your setup is there. So,
Good intro. So
no. I had a question.
Tell me.
So we're all here
You see me?
because we're Midwesterners. So I think this is the biggest reason Tim
Oh wait,
brought us
all the
together.
Midwesterners. Hold
Yes. So we're actually at my house today.
Michiganders.
Well, in Michiganders, but I would like to say Midwestern.
on. Is that a real thing? You guys say Michigan?
We're Michiganders.
Are you kidding me?
So something that I want to know, and I think that's why Tim organized this Midwest meetup, as he called it, or Michigan meetup, is I believe, and again, I'm programmed by Joe Rogan, and he talks about this a lot, about the work ethic and the mentality that comes from being in a northern climate, being in rough, weather, etc. I'll move around. Do you think that being in the Midwest, being in a cold climate, being in, whatever, do you think that has some effect on trading, or do you think it just doesn't matter where you're from?
I think it does have a bit of an effect. I mean, it might be a small effect, but you're gonna. I do think you'll have more successful people that have. There's not as much fun stuff to do out in the winter.
And I think, and I'll move to you guys. My answer is I just think that you don't have that get-rich-quick mentality as much. I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't exist in the Midwest, but I think you've got more of that grinder type philosophy, and that fact that, again, a lot of us, I mean, my dad worked in a factory. I mean, he knew he was going to be able to provide for his family. He knew he wasn't going to get rich. He was grinding away in that factory, grinding away on the farm. He farmed and worked in a factory, grinding. I think that attitude comes from the Midwest. So, Dom, do you think where you grew up or where you are has any effect on your trading, or are we imagining things?
I mean, I don't know if it's a Michigan thing. I think it was kind of the way I was raised, and I've had a job since I was 15, and I've always had to be doing something to bring money in.
See, and that's the point I wanted to make about you two guys, both you guys. I mean, you're hustling. You're landscaping and a valet when you're 16, 17, yeah.
But I do think that there's not as many distractions in Michigan and versus other places in America and all over the world. And the time zone's perfect. I don't know. I do think it helps you a lot because when it's dark at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you got nothing else to do but sit in your office and grind.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Michigan, in the winter, in December, it gets light at like 8:30 a.m. and it's dark at like 4:45 p.m. Yeah.
Barely out of the office and it's dark.
Yeah.
So it's an incentive, I think, to stay and keep studying. So it's probably a small advantage, but I think it does help.
And Jack, again, I think, I know you came from Connecticut and now you moved in with Dom, but, I think you've got that similar attitude. I mean, you were, again, working multiple jobs, hustling, saving that money. I mean, do you think the way your mindset, maybe the way you were raised, has some effect on your trading?
Yeah, definitely. And then when I even moved to Michigan, like, I don't have a car, like, I don't really have too many friends out here. I just have people that I trade with, and I'm like solely focused on trading and really immersing yourself into the game. Like, that's how you're going to get the best. The more work you put in, like, the luckier you get, you know what I mean? The better you're going to get. And just that slow grind in the Midwest, like, I'm not over there looking at like LA mansions and saying like some fake lifestyle. Like, I'm grinding it out.
Avoid the Instagram models. Avoid the flashy cars. Focus on your trading. That's what I would say.
All right. So the interesting thing about that is my latest 2 millionaire students both found me because they liked my Lamborghini on Instagram. So what I like is that, these visuals can motivate you to study hard. But at the same time, all millionaire students and six-figure students, the one thing they have in common is that they study their butts off. And it's all about preparation. So no matter what motivates you to make a lot of money, you have to learn the process, as we talked about, as you guys have learned, that we're all, different traders. And being in the Midwest, I mean, part of the reason why we're here, not because I wanted to come to Michigan. I think it's funny. I was trying to buy some tumbleweeds. Do we get tumbleweeds?
There aren't tumbleweeds in Michigan. It's too humid. You're thinking of the Southwest.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's some weird nature shit going on here, but it's weird.
It's called thunderstorms.
Like, there's no power. I rented a barn. There's no power in the whole town. Even McDonald's doesn't have power. And I go to some countries like Laos, like Cambodia, South Africa. These places don't even have dirt. Like, they have dirt floors. They don't even have floors, and yet they have power. And somehow Michigan does not have clean water and now does not have. It blows my mind. But I do think that, having bad weather and having the right focus really helps. Like, you were not successful in Connecticut, where I'm from, but now you're successful in Michigan, partially because of him, partially because there's fucking nothing to do here. Right? Like, you guys have no outside life whatsoever that allowed you to make $200,000, that allowed you to make $100,000, versus people in LA, New York, and a lot of these big cities like, we have a Broadway show, we got bars, we got like a nightlife. Like, here, it's like, what do? We
study.
Throw darts. Like, you play these little basketball games. Pan over to the basketball game thing, right? Like, this is a classic Michigan,
We're even in the basement. No,
activity.
We're safe from the thunderstorms and the tornadoes.
Yeah, so. I mean, I don't know. I appreciate you Midwesterners. I appreciate you people who live in bumblefuck nowhere. Just keep studying.
Well, to add on to that, I think we like to be outside here in Michigan and in the Midwest in the summertime, but that's when the stock market tends to be a little slower.
Yep,
So
yep.
you can take days off, go out and go kayaking or whatever
Sure.
you feel like doing. But yeah, you've got a good half the year where it's not exactly pretty outside, and there's not exciting cuisine or fun shows to go to. So.
I like how I was very negative and you say it's positive. Like, you say it like in a positive way. Like, there's not much to do. And I'm like, yo, there's fucking nothing to do. Like, you're trying to defend your place, but you really can't. But at least you're saying positive stuff. Like, that's new for you. I'm proud of you.
It's the trials of this place give us our strength of character.
and you find positivity in what you can find.
It's like that Leonardo DiCaprio movie where he won the Oscar. What was that?
Reverend?
The Reverend.
Titanic?
No, The Reverend. No, not Titanic. He dies in Titanic.
Reverend was a good movie.
The Reverend, because
I
it's
thought
like
it was
nature,
terrible.
and that reminds me of Michigan.
If I want to watch a guy crawl across the dirt for 2 hours, it just wasn't my thing, man.
Well, you
maybe
just go
it is.
outside to Michigan,
Exactly,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it. You try to do something outside with the elements in your face. Cool. No, that's exactly what I wanted. Like, we need to figure out how to replicate your guys' success. And
Do difficult shit.
I think the thing is really just having the right work ethic.
Yep.
And that's not all. I mean, you do need some other stuff too. But
Discipline.
and you need to have the right sort of mindset. Some people I don't think just don't have the personality to trade. But there's very few people I can think of who really worked hard at learning to trade for a long period of time who did not ever succeed to any extent. There are people, but not a lot.
I agree. This is
I think you
rocket
need that.
science.
You need that work ethic and that attitude to get there. Because
Yeah.
if not, you're just gonna give up. Because you're gonna hit rough patches. And if you don't have that, just like you were, you were studying. You decided it wasn't the thing for you, but you were
Right.
studying your ass off,
Yeah.
making nothing, but you were still willing to put in that work. So, speaking of which, we'll finish on this. Last question, and I'm not trying to discourage anyone from going to college. If you're a doctor, an engineer, or something like that, don't go into gender studies, my friends. So, my question for you is, did anything in your advanced degree apply to trading?
A tiny bit.
Tiny bit.
Understanding,
Probably more analytical type stuff.
The analytical thinking, understanding of statistics really helps because I think, especially with trading, it's not like most things. It's not like, if you do it right, it will work out. If you go 90% of the time, if you have a normal job, if you do things right, things will turn out good. But with trading, if you do things right
It can still
all
go
the
back.
time, you're still going to lose a third of the time because it's probabilistic. There's going to be trades that don't work out, and you need to be able to understand that. And
Say that word again?
probabilistic.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a Midwestern word. Every single person who understands the lessons from this video, leave a comment saying probabilistic. Hey, Tim Sykes, millionaire mentor and trader. Thank you for watching my videos. I hope that they help you. I want to share everything that I've learned over the years. You can check out more videos right over there. And also click subscribe so that you can watch all of these videos, get that knowledge, and become my next millionaire student.